Hello and welcome to Seismic Cinema. So put your feet up in the caravan of courage, grab a healing kyber crystal, and prepare to dance and sing along to the best podcast theme tune that I've ever heard.
You're not paying us enough to sing it.
I'm so prepared to. That's the thing. I'm ready.
Can I have a go at it?
Go ahead.
Oh gosh, God. That's it. We'll just do that.
I can't remember if we've discussed this or not, but who created your theme tune? Was it one of you guys or was it someone?
No, we bought it off a royalty-free site for a fiver.
We bought it. We felt it was literally we went searching for loads of what did we say, James? We said we want to find some music which sounds funny, like welcoming, jazzy. And one of the first things we found was something called, what was it? Uplifting jazz.
Fun and uplifting jazz.
And we thought that fits the bill.
I like the honesty, but I kind of feel a bit sad now. I thought there'd be like this deep.
I was gonna have a go at writing a piece because I am a musician and I thought, yeah, this would be fun. It only has to be like 30 seconds. And then I sat down to do it. I was like, oh, this is way harder than I thought it was gonna be.
Oh well. Credit to the original creators, but I generally will find myself just going last.
Sometimes I find it when I listen to another podcast and I press play and it doesn't start with fun and uplifting jazz. My brain is a little bit confused. It's like, why is the podcast starting with different music? Oh, it's a different podcast.
Is that James? Is what you're saying? You only listen to our podcast?
Yes, I only listen to our podcast. It's legitimately was third on my Spotify Unwrapped from last year.
I like the honesty because so do I.
Anything to get the listener numbers up.
Going back to the start, you guys will get your chance to plug anyway. But me and Paul always forget to plug ourselves. So
sorry, I hijacked that.
Paul's not with us unfortunately tonight. But I am one half of Seismic Cinema. So usually I've not seen it, although I'm starting to see a lot of things that I haven't seen. So we're getting there with it. And Paul has usually watched it in the wrong order, which he also did when he started watching Narcos, as Paul says. I said it wrong. He watched the season finale to season 1. So he started at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
Doesn't really make sense. But if you enjoy movies and TV and you want to check out more, then you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and YouTube, Spotify, and all the places where you listen to podcasts. So I'm going to give Paul the credit here. This was Paul's intro to you guys. So somehow Moisture Farm Report have returned, and not because of lazy writing or plot conveniences, but because we decided to hit you guys up on Twitter and get you on for this special review episode of Bad Batch Season 2 and Mando Season 3, which I'm calling Bad Mando.
Well, thank you very much for having us. We certainly enjoyed your kind invite, and to be honest, we thought we'd be presented with some lovely food and drinks for our spot on here. We're kind of gutted that when there's no food and drink. So what's that all about? Mind you, I have got a nice cup of tea next to me, so that's.
We get merchandise.
Nice. But no, thank you very much. We did enjoy the last time we were on, and we were quite excited to come back on. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Excited to have you on, and especially because you two have finally met for the first time in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, we can confirm that the other person is actually a real human.
Describe that moment. Like, had you planned exactly where you were going to meet, or was it more just like we'll bump into each other?
Oh gosh.
We went to the pub the night before Star Wars Celebration. So for anyone who doesn't listen to our show and doesn't know, Adam and I have been hosting the Moisture Farm Report for about nearly 2 years now, and we've never met in person before because we live on opposite sides of the country. But we both went to Star Wars Celebration a couple of weeks ago and met for the first time. But yeah, we went to the pub the night before, which felt like a nice way to kind of break the ice before being in a big sweaty convention hall for the day. It was weird though. I remember I walked in the pub and I saw you at the bar, and there was a moment where I was like, "Oh, I recognize him," and I was like, "Oh, it's Adam. So. I know him." Yeah,
I've looked at his face for the past 2 years on a computer screen.
But it's so weird. You forget you've only ever seen someone like through a Zoom window, and you're like, I haven't seen if they have legs at all, or like I haven't seen them in 3D before.
It was strange. So I mean, we've known each other for a really long time. So I feel like we messaged and we said, oh, let's meet here, and let's just sit down and have dinner. And I think I had the same sort of feeling of I was excited, but it was also when I saw you, I think it was this strange disconnect of I knew it was you, but at the same time it felt weird to actually see you walk through the door. And like perspective wise, we only see each other on a Zoom screen, so like we don't know how tall each other are. We don't know how each but that, for example, I remember seeing you and then thinking, oh, okay, cool. I don't know. Just,
he's shorter than I expected.
I didn't want to say it, but you said it.
Where are you? Did what you found meet what you thought? If that makes sense, was there any big surprises?
I don't think there were. I remember I had a moment before we met where I was like, what if we meet and we don't get on in person? What if we're fine hosting a podcast but we just don't get on socially?
You flat out asked me over Messenger, just said what if we don't get along? I was like, basically is your question, what if I'm an asshole? And I'm like,
or me, it could have been me.
And my response was, well, I don't actually know. I suppose you just don't bring it up.
It's like, do we just carry on hosting the podcast and pretend that we're friends? Luckily we did. It's fine.
It's like you've been online dating for a long time. And
Quite literally. But we had
it's not that different.
But we had a lot of stuff to reminisce about and chat about. Because I don't know, there was a lot to chat about. There was an interesting musical performance going on behind us at the pub, where this person brought out this incredible, I think, Asian stringed instrument and started doing this lovely recital behind us. So and it lasted for a good hour and a half, didn't it? To a point where I think we were tempted to even just turn around and just sit and listen for a bit. But it was fine. And then that made the time when we did actually meet up at the actual convention center a lot more easier. I think it was great. We got along, we chatted, we had a laugh, and we talked a lot about Star Wars, didn't we?
We did indeed.
We actually talked
a very good weekend.
We managed to brainstorm a couple of episode ideas, which is always useful.
Yeah. We need to do
another one. You've got another one tonight as well. Your Visions episode.
Exactly. We need to talk about Vision some point soon, because when was it you said that season 2 is coming out? Was it May the 4th? May the 4th.
Yeah, 4th.
It's a week on Thursday. It's coming out.
Yeah, that's really crept up because the trailer wasn't revealed until Celebration. Yeah, looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Aardman Animations having an episode because I'm from Bristol, so Aardman is local to me.
That's the one that's don't they produce things like Wallace and Gromit?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So it's that typical stop motion animation style, which and it's got the humor, it seems, from the trailer. From all the Wallace and Gromit stuff. It's got, I can't remember what happened in the trailer, but you've got those two small little creatures who do this little scared kind of thing to the camera, which I can't wait.
I'm just excited to get more Bristol in Star Wars because it started with Dave Prowse being from Bristol and playing Darth Vader. It's still going on now.
Yeah,
Bristol is the home of Star Wars. Apparently,
that was the other thing we concluded. It was James has done the legwork to come down to London, to come down to my pack. Now I've got to go to Bristol next time.
Yeah, you've got to sit on a National Express for 4 hours.
If you're ever coming up to Scotland, you can let us know.
Nice.
I had a similar experience to you guys, maybe not as extreme, but Paul's girlfriend's cousin Daniels came on quite a few of our podcasts. You probably maybe seen him before.
Yeah.
He actually came on my stag do, and I'd never met him. So,
nice.
Paul was like, "Should all right if I say to Daniel?" And I was like, "Why not? He lives in Glasgow." So me and Daniel met for the first time on my stag do after doing multiple podcasts together.
That's quite a time to meet for the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard what I get dressed up as on it.
I haven't. No,
I don't know.
This was Paul's idea. A certain beach wear outfit from Return of the Jedi.
Oh, wow!
Yes, I've got Paul to thank for that one.
Was anyone dressed as a Jabba the Hutt or someone like that to go along with that? Of course, it's just a solo costume.
Not quite, no, but it was mentioned.
So yeah, gone as Salacious B. Crumb.
I half introduced you guys at the start, but both myself and Paul just want to congratulate you on wrapping up season 4.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul's left a few notes from not being here that he really enjoyed your What If episodes.
Nice. Yeah.
I did think in a kind of Paul order. I listened to like half of your Caravan of Courage episode, and then I watched like half an hour of it. I think I've enjoyed your podcast more than the actual TV movie.
That doesn't surprise me. I know a lot of people didn't love it. Like, I know we're very much in the minority enjoying it.
We certainly got more out of it than the holiday special, put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh well.
But thank you very much. We very much enjoyed making season 4, and the what ifs were quite fun. We added a whole extra what if to our episode list because we thought, why not? We enjoy making them a lot more. Well, we enjoy making them, and so what was James, did you have a particular favorite from that season?
Trying to think. Other than the one we did in person at Star Wars Celebration, I think the Kino Loy what if we did was really fun because we picked a character that there's just no story for apart from what was in a couple of episodes of Andor. So that was really fun just to have like a blank canvas to go with. Really enjoyed doing seasons. I can't believe we've done 4 seasons now.
I know, it's mental. Like it was like only the other day we were planning season 1 in what was it, spring of 2021 or
something like that. Yeah,
and here we are.
You need to make a movie soon.
Yes.
Yeah. I think
bring
James,
all of our what if characters together into one big Avengers Endgame film.
Well, we were thinking of somehow trying to retcon all of our what ifs, for future episodes. We hopefully Wikipedia's listening and create a whole new entry, a whole new sort of section of the website dedicated to the Moisture Farm report.
Canon, Legends, TMFR headcanon.
James, we must have crossed 50 episodes quite recently.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I bet we have. I don't even think we posted it on Twitter if we did. That, which is bad on our part, I suppose.
We either have or we're going to in season 5.
No, because 4 seasons, 12 episodes times by 4. What's that? 48, and then we've had a few off-season episodes. So we must have.
Okay, we're gonna have to mark it when we get to episode 60.
You just need to do it retrospectively.
Yeah. It was the celebration episode we did. That was our 50th episode.
That was our 50th. Oh my gosh, what a great 50th.
The episode we recorded in person, and we missed that it was our milestone episode.
We're just too caught up.
Oh. That makes that episode so much more special, but that's hilarious.
Well, I'm glad we've realised that now. Oh dear.
Oh.
We will get into so I think we've made it this far without actually explaining the purpose. So we're going to do a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A mismatch? No, not a mismatch. What's the word? It's a mix of Bad Batch season 2 and Mando season 3.
A melange.
And I thought we'd start with Bad Batch because I feel like the Mando discussion would probably take longer.
Sure.
Sure. Paul's given me some of his thoughts on each of the seasons. Do you think we should save them for the end, or do you think we should share them first and then spin off from Paul's thoughts?
I'm excited to hear what he thinks about the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I've got all I can hear is my cat snoring right now. Right, where did he do it? So he's got some positives and some negatives.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So he says Crosshair's arc.
Mm.
This is the positives.
Yep.
Episodes that drove the story forward were excellent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cody and Mayday, awesome episodes and characters.
Yeah.
Plan 99, emotional damage. And animation itself was amazing.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
And Clone Army Fate, cleverly done and made to really care about them and their conditions.
That's some interesting thoughts.
And his negatives, Omega is still annoying. Too many filler episodes. Tech's weird romance. Paul wanted more of Rex and Echo. Saw as a numpty. And Zepho Megazord.
Yes. I think I agree with Paul on everything apart from Omega, and I will fight him on that.
Yes.
Why don't we start there then? What's your views on Omega?
She's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and she has been ever since I watched the first season. I think there's an episode in season 1 where she goes with the Bad Batch for the first time, and they go into hyperspace, and you get this shot of like her eyes with the hyperspace lights reflecting her eyes. And I think it just from that moment I was like, oh yeah, that's how I felt watching Star Wars for the first time. Of like, what is this? This is incredible. So yeah, I will meet Paul in the car park to discuss hot takes about Omega.
If it makes you feel any better, I quite like her more this season. I feel like she's went from being like the young kid to a slightly older kid who's a wee bit more streetwise and a wee bit. I think she was a wee bit annoying in season 1.
Yeah.
But I think in season 2, I didn't really find her that annoying, if I'm honest.
Yeah. There's less like babysitting of her in season 2, wasn't there? Like she was a more active member. Like it felt like she was part of the Bad Batch rather than just someone traveling with them.
Yeah.
Can we talk about her outfit? Because I thought it looked incredible this season. Like it just looks so cool with the little that hat looked a lot like the ones that the Rebels wear on Endor in Return of the Jedi. I don't think it's got anything to do with it, but I just thought it looked so cool. I like using that bow so much more.
Because there was a bit of a time jump, wasn't? I don't know how big it was, but there was a wee bit of a time jump between season 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was as much as year. It was some time.
I mean, it wasn't. I'm trying to think because obviously the end of season 1 was all the events of the destruction of the clone city or the Kaminoan city, and a lot of that is retconned somewhere in the middle of season 2 in the Senate and things like that, and it infers that it's fairly recent, or at least it's happened not in the not too distant past, but maybe a few months or something.
I can't remember what year they're set in at all.
Yeah.
No. Come on, Wikipedia.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? Are you an Omega cheerleader?
I don't know whether I'll be meeting Paul in the car park. We'll put it that way. I think I'm sort of I'm closer to the door than I am in the middle of the car park. But
you're supposed to back me up.
No, okay. Listen, I'll back you up on a lot of points, but I like Omega for a number of reasons. And that's just I think she. There's a lot of times when I think the Bad Batch can take themselves a little bit too seriously in a way, and Omega provides that relief and that grounding, which I think all the characters need. And I think there was a lot of really good work in this season where she was able to connect with characters such as Echo and other characters like that, where I don't know, she just provided a clarity of purpose for all those different characters. And while there was possibly one episode, I think, or maybe 2 episodes where I did find her a little bit annoying, maybe is where I will align with Paul here. And I think it was at the beginning of the season where she kind of goes off on her little journey and she tries to rescue the money, isn't it? Or there's like a bound, and she falls down into that ship and she has to get rescued. And there was another episode, I think, is it the planet with where she meets that boy who is controlled by this sort of like overseer kind of person and runs that place like a sort of slave labor kind of place. And there was this naivety to her in that episode, which I think a lot of people can find grating.
Yeah.
For sure. So I'm probably like, and during that episode, I was kind of like, oh God, there's Omega being too trusting on people again. Stop it. You've gone through a whole season to learn this. Why are you having to do it again?
Yeah, there's a couple of times when it feels like she doesn't quite listen to reason just because the plot needs them to get into another mess. Like you said with the episode on Dooku's planet, when she's like, no, we've got to go back for the war chest. I can reach it. And like, the plot needs you to try and reach for it. You don't actually need to. So I get where Paul's coming from, but also I will throw hands.
I think that leads quite nicely into. I think we may as well just use Paul's discussion points as our structure for the discussions. But one of my main issues with the show, it's not as big an issue for me when it comes to Mandalorian, which we'll discuss next. But the real filler episodes in Bad Batch do seem very filler-esque compared to the Mando episodes, because I feel like Mando are better at tying it back in the future.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the Bad Batch ones, like the ones we discussed, like the one with the Megazord and the some of the ones where they just went looking for treasure. Basically, anytime Sid, who I don't like, I'll take the car apart over Sid if need be. I don't know. What were your thoughts on the way Bad Batch runs, particularly this season, in terms of filler versus main plot?
I think they definitely spent a lot of time. Here's the thing. I think they could have certainly concentrated on a lot of characters which were more interesting to explore. Like, for example, Crosshair, which I'm sure we'll look into in another conversation. But there was such good stuff to look into there, which I remember me and James sort of talked to each other that they sort of started propelling his arc on way too late in the season. It almost felt like they were staving off that and holding off from touching onto that. I think they only really had 2 or 3 Crosshair episodes out of that entire season, didn't they? Because they had the one on the snow planet with the base. They had the one
with Cody.
Cody. And I thought that was in a way rushed. Well, not rushed, but they took quite little time really to get to his redemption or his sort of reversal moment. Whereas they spent a lot of time with, like you said, Sid chasing treasure. And while that was, they were perfectly fine episodes. James, I think you'll back me up here that you also felt like some of them just, go on. What do you think?
Yeah, there was a while in the middle of the season, I think, after we had the episode with Crosshair and Cody, which is episode 3, there was a while where like every week I'd be like, is Crosshair ever coming back? Like, are we ever getting more of his story? Because it wasn't until episode 12 that he came back again for the episode in the Outpost. He did. I don't know. It felt a little bit like they didn't really know how to flesh the season out, and they were just kind of treading water with a lot of it to get to. Like, it felt to me like they knew where it is ending, but they just didn't really know how to kind of ramp the tension up to get there in however many episodes it was, like 16 episodes or something.
Do you think this would work better do you think Bad Batch would work better if it dropped all at once instead of week by week?
Maybe. It's a lot
maybe,
to drop
maybe
at
in
once.
2 parts, maybe 8 and 8.
Yeah,
possibly.
Or if they dropped like a couple of episodes a week rather than just one, because I think sometimes you watch like 20 minutes of it and it's just like the racing episode or something like that, and you think, oh, that wasn't really worth it, and then you're less interested.
The racing episode has more impact when we get to the end of the season.
Yes.
I have hot takes about that episode, but I don't know whether I can get past or not.
Go for it.
I just remember seeing, like, I don't know whether any of you saw this, but I remember seeing this like hot debate on Twitter about whether or not that was a filler episode. And somebody put this argument out that it's not a filler episode because Tech went through character development. And I saw this before I watched the episode, so I thought, oh, this is interesting. And then I watched the episode and I was like, I don't see what development Tech went through in that. And I don't know if it's just because I'm thinking about it as a writer. But I remember there was a point where he was like watching the race and he was analyzing strategy and stuff and talking to the droid whose name I can't remember. And Teo, that was it. And he was saying like, oh, I've analyzed, the best way for this to win this race is to drop your weapon system. You need to go for pure speed. And Teo was like, are you crazy? You don't know what you're talking about. You've got to be on the offense in these races. If you lose your weapons, you're dead. And then like when Tech takes over, I thought, oh, this is going to be his character development. He's going to think, I need to drop the weapon systems because I'll be faster. My strategy, like I've worked it all out. And then he's going to realize, actually, no, Teo is right because he knows more about the situation than I do. And like it's a growth moment for Tech. He learns that his models and stats and everything aren't all the knowledge he needs. Like sometimes you need to listen to other people around you. Yeah. But he doesn't. He just drops the weapon system off the speeder, goes faster and wins. And I was like, that's not development. That's just he starts the episode like, oh, I've worked it out. I'm right, and then ends the episode and he's right.
And of course, Tech's main development is obviously that scene when he actually has to communicate to Omega when Omega is sad that Echo is left, and Tech can't actually understand like how on earth do I, why is she feeling this way, and why why can't she understand? Like that was the moment, and this kind of just felt a little bit sort of showboating.
Which I know it feels like a bit of a I don't know, maybe I've gone on a bit of a rant there about a really minor point, but I think it summed up how I felt about a lot of the season. In that it felt like there were ideas there, but it felt like they didn't really think like twice about them. Like I don't know, this might be a really obscure example, but it made me think of stuff I turned in when I was at university and doing modules on script writing. And I could remember my script writing teacher would quite often give feedback of things like, this is a really good idea, but it feels like a first draft. Like there's more tension you can wring out of this if you want to spend time working on it. And it'll be like, you can get a good grade for this if you submit it now, but it can be like a 2-1 or a first if you do this extra like teasing out of more of the story. That's kind of how I felt with this. Like if I'd written the script and given it to him, I think it would have been like, it's all right, you'll get a passing grade, but it could be brilliant if you just tease out these little extra bits of drama and extra bits of development. And it annoyed me that there were these like niggling moments where I was like, oh, this could be brilliant, and it's just not quite there.
Sounds very similar. You could be describing Mando season 3 there as well.
Maybe I am.
Oh yeah.
Something that I don't know. This point will make sense in a second. Have you guys seen Gavin and Stacey before?
Yeah.
Right. So after we not had this discussion before, we considered
came up when we were talking about.
I think we might have done.
So I don't particularly share this view, but a lot of people do. That Gavin and Stacey are the worst characters in Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of feel this way about Bad Batch. I feel like the episodes that don't involve the main... I don't include Crosshair in this, by the way, because he's not really with them. I feel like the main batch... I feel like the best episodes in this season is when they ventured out to Crosshair on his own.
Yeah.
Cody out and about. And I feel like those episodes were a lot stronger than the ones when it was just the batch out doing their thing.
I think the Bad Batch are like a good window onto other lives. Like when the episode where they meet Gunji the Wookiee, I thought that was a really strong episode because you got like the Bad Batch kind of introduced you to another world. But when it's just the batch, there's a little bit of like, it's almost like they need someone else in there to bounce off of them.
Well, that's what I thought, that we've spent a lot of time already with that crew in season 1, sort of exploring their relationships together and exploring their outlooks on life and in general, like what is their purpose and growing as a collective. So I feel like a lot of times we were just going over old ground through the season, and the times when we were looking through more the representation of clones in the galaxy, when we were looking at how Crosshair now feels about the Empire going forward. Those were the ones which gave us a different perspective that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I agree completely.
I don't know if it was intentional, but it feels like they didn't have a lot. I don't know, maybe it was intentional. They didn't really have much of a plan. They just were aimlessly working for Sid and just meeting ends meets without having... I guess that's where that arc came from with the the really good 2-parter they had in the middle of the season. You know the one I mean?
Which one was that?
Is that the one where they get stuck on the mine planet?
trying to find the names of the episodes. It was the Clone Conspiracy.
Yes.
Truth and Consequences.
That was good.
So basically, the clones have realized that the Empire destroyed Camino, and they're trying to get to like the bottom of it, but the Empire obviously don't want that coming out.
Yeah, that was the point in the season where I like got back into it again, where I woke up and thought, oh, actually, this is really good.
Yeah.
It just seemed to take a while to get there.
Because that's what the I remember watching the first episode of Bad Batch, the really long one. It was like an hour 20 minutes, and I was like blown away by how good the first episode was of season 1.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been its strongest part when it is looking at the Empire and the phasing out of the clones, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just another perspective we haven't seen before, and also like in different media we've we sort of have glimpses of what happened to the clone army, but it's not really been explored too much in canon. So it's just really interesting to see how it all intertwines, and how, like, especially later on in the season when we get a glimpse of the high-ranking Imperial officers like Krennic and all of these people, like how that all fitted into their plans and how they organized that whole thing. Like actually seeing those little meetings with Tarkin and things were really good. I enjoyed those.
And I think with the Batch... Sorry, Colin.
No, you go.
And I think with the Batch, you do get this really fascinating kind of insight, because you're not... Like, all of the clones are soldiers who are bred for war, and now the war's over, and there's a question of, like, what happens to them? But I think especially the Batch, because they're, like, genetically enhanced for combat and for commando operations and stuff, you really get that sense, especially when they land on Pabu later in the season, and they're thinking about setting up home there, and they're, like, so out of place there, because they're like, this isn't what everything we've known has been the battlefield, and now our life has changed. It's a really fascinating perspective, I think, for me, that you do get to see this, like, what happens to them after the war. I just find that really interesting. I love that this show explores that, because I don't think you do get to see that elsewhere.
Something that I wasn't sure about was the scheduling of these shows, how they were running at the same time on the same day. Part of me wonders, either they just that's the only way they could fit it in, but is there a case that they're both kind of looking at leading towards like cloning and things? Do you think there maybe was a reason why they were running at the same time, because there was like aspects of the storylines in the seasons which eventually link into Palpatine returning?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think so. I think there was I think it was certainly a point when they go to Mount Tapnis for either the first or the second time. I think that sort of coincided with some other clone plot lines in The Mandalorian. So it could well be. I can't quite remember any other Star Wars TV series releasing on any other day other than Wednesday, unless anyone can correct me. Has that ever happened? Has it always been Wednesday?
I thought Mando used to come out on a Friday.
I think it used to be Friday up until Kenobi. I think then they moved that to Wednesdays for some reason.
Right.
I quite like it. It gives you a midweek treat to look forward to.
I
find it annoying. It releases like an hour before I start work. Like, I don't have time to watch it, and I got to spend the whole day not looking at Twitter.
I was terrified of spoilers for Mando.
Yeah.
I ended up watching it on my lunch break at work, because I was like, something's going to get spoiled here.
I always hate those, because I just hate the idea of, I hate just having your phone on lockdown for like a whole day, but you're just trying to avoid everything possible. I remember when, like, I would try and follow like sports events and try to avoid those, and you would be like, right, I have to delete Twitter, Instagram, because it would come up as you refresh the page, it'd be like a picture of whatever's like some sort of spoiler, or it'll come up on like a BBC News headline at the top of your phone. It's so annoying.
My friend told me the other day that he set up a separate Twitter account that's like just for following stuff that's not related to something like sport or a TV show, so that if he's not caught up on something, he can just log into that account, read everything he wants to, and then he doesn't see any of the spoilers. I thought, I need to do that.
That's so useful.
It's so much extra work, but it feels necessary now.
It's weird though, isn't it, that James? Why did they not feel like what? Surely, if you were to not release the Bad Batch on, say, a Monday, and then the Mandalorian on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and evenly space that out, space out the hype evenly across a week, like surely that I don't know. It is strange though, isn't it? Just sort of boxing it all on one day, but maybe it was just the tie-ins with the plot.
You could do an episode on that.
Yeah,
good indeed. I did find it
scheduling.
Yeah, I did find it weird that they released on the same day, because it did seem to it felt like it took the impact away from whichever one you didn't watch first.
Exactly.
Or like I'd watch one first and like I'd think about the second one more or something like that. But yeah, I did just do some sneaky detective work. I looked at the schedules, and the Mandalorian started the same week that the Bad Batch episode with the Zillow Beast clone happened. So I think you might be onto something, Colin. I think it is that they were like that. They started at that point where the clone story started coming in.
Yeah,
and then obviously cloning was a big part of the Mandalorian. So
I knew I'd make it as a detective.
Crack the case.
There was an interesting part. Mando's naturally the one people would look forward to the most, but there was a part in the season, I think it was the weakest Mando episodes. There was a point where I actually looked forward to Bad Batch more out of the two. I think there was like 2 weeks. I think it was like particularly strong Bad Batch episodes and slightly weaker Mando episodes that I was actually enjoying Bad Batch more on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, it was nice having the option. The option of which one to watch. I never quite had that before, but we almost felt so spoiled for Star Wars stuff, didn't we, for a while? It was like, my goodness, it cost so much.
We were talking, Adam, before you came on, and I was like, oh, there's no Star Wars this week, but there is next week. So it's like, there's literally a 2-week gap between content.
Remember when we were growing up? And we had like however many years between Revenge of the Sith and Force Awakens. Now we're bothered. Like a couple of weeks is excruciating.
When we were, what age would we have been? About 16, 17. Me and Paul went to the cinema where we lived to see the Clone Wars movie in the cinema.
Yeah,
I never went to see that at the cinema. It completely passed me by.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's weird that like 10 years between kind of live action stuff, and now we're like, oh yeah, 2 weeks without Star Wars, it sucks.
It's quite interesting that we've been talking about the schedule of the episodes, because we've spent a reasonable portion of the Bad Batch discussion talking about it in comparison to Mandalorian, so it's quite interesting how that was done.
Yeah.
I think this is a good point for me to ask my questions. So I said to you at the start, I'll give you a bit of thinking time. So there's favourite moment, character, and episode for Bad Batch Season 2.
Okay.
So who wants to go first out of you two?
Adam, you go first. You're first alphabetically.
Okay. So it was,
do your moment, and we'll all do our moment, and then we'll do character, then episode. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. I would say that I think my favorite episode has probably got to be Crosshair's sort of reversal, if that makes sense, when he uncovers the other clone regiment and he's forced to save the other one. And I don't know, there was something about that episode which just felt very poignant on many levels. I think just that final shot of him carrying that clone through the snow and falling to his knees, and I remember there being this really dramatic sort of violin music in the background that created this sort of sense of dread about what was about to happen, and just seeing how Crosshair's sort of been destroyed and broken down to the point where he's pleading with that superior to rescue him. I just remember that being like really powerful, and I remember feeling really somewhat emotional a little bit after that. And then obviously him deciding to then yeet that guy in the last moment was sort of like, I didn't expect that to happen, actually. I didn't expect him to really turn on the Empire that quickly. So when it did happen, it was like, oh my gosh, wow. But yeah, that episode for me, I can't remember what it was called. But James, if you have the list up, I was just about to refer to you.
I think it's The Outpost.
The Outpost.
Yes, The Outpost.
Yeah, we'll go with that one.
Okay, thank you very much. And James, what was your favourite Bad Batch Season 2 episode?
Conveniently, The Outpost.
That's why you two do the podcast together.
Yeah. Although normally we have completely opposite opinions. It's weird for us to agree on something.
Not always. Sometimes we come up with
rare,
sometimes we come up with the same what if stories. That's
very true. Discussion. Yeah, I really love that episode for like the same reasons of just you saw like Crosshair's character. I think just that time he spent alone in the snow with Mayday. It was as if everything was just kind of stripped away from Crosshair, like all of the posturing and all of the fear and everything that he kind of built up around himself over the course of season 1. It's just you got the core of his character of just someone who wants to be part of something, like someone who feels a brotherhood. And when the Empire comes between him and his clone brothers, like you just saw him snap. And I thought that episode was brilliant. It was so compelling watching that.
But I always thought that with Crosshair, it was always a case of, he wanted to obviously be with some sort of family, but he seemed to always choose. He always seemed to choose the winning side more than anything else.
Yes,
he was always more interested in his own self-interest and survival, and what was going to be the best way to do that. So as that episode sort of was the cracking of that realization of, wow, I actually am not safe here. I am under threat from the Empire here, and now I need to do something about it finally.
Yeah, it was that moment where he realized like they are just using me. Like for all they make it look like I'm part of them, they are just using me. Yeah, and like I'm not going to survive with them any more than I would by myself.
Yeah.
Oh, well, did you plan that in advance?
No. No, literally didn't.
I feel like I should pick another episode now just to be be Are you going to say the Outpost as well, Colin?
No, I'm going to give a big shout out to the two-parter we discussed earlier, the Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences, particularly when Palpatine makes his dramatic appearance at the end of that episode. But I'm going to go for a bit of an outlier, not one that people would expect. And Paul, in our podcast, Paul's known to love the kind of the mental episodes with all the action, whereas I like the quieter ones. I really enjoyed Pabu.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just quite liked them just taking a breath and going to live in this like kind of tropical island, and just that sense that something was going to go wrong. And I liked that it was just kind of like it was like a more of a natural disaster, but it also gave that hint. It's a bit like the Sanctuary episode of Mandalorian, where they go to like the village, and he has a look at what his life could be like if he stepped away from the battle. I quite enjoyed that one.
It was really beautifully done, wasn't it? There was lovely music. It was lovely art in the background. There were some really cute moments and wholesome moments when Omega finds that little friend finally to go and play with and go sailing with together. Did you see that at least what I thought, that they introduced sushi for the first time in Star Wars in that episode, where they're sitting down for dinner and there's just all these like sushi rolls on the plate, which I really found. I love that.
I would need to watch it again. I think it must just be a moisture farm thing for looking at the really tiny details.
We always swap food in Star Wars. I just loved how suddenly it turned from, they arrived and Fee was like, come stay here, it's beautiful, we got lovely weather, lovely food, people for Omega to play with, and then like the flood sirens start going off and they're like, oh yeah, we also have these periodic floods that just destroy half the island. Don't worry about it. Like put that first on the brochure.
They're trying to get everybody up they're bringing the ladders down and everything like that.
You know what that reminded me of? That sort of reminded me of when they all have to evacuate Minas Tirith or get everyone to the higher grounds in Lord of the Rings. Just sort of that ring around, or at least trying to just get up that massive hill, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I think also that episode on Pabu sort of feeds into what James was saying about what are the clones' purpose when they're away from war, and that really did sort of, look into that a little bit. But yeah,
I know Paul wasn't that keen on that episode, I remember, but Paul doesn't really like happy, quiet episodes.
Paul likes the shooty.
Yeah, shooty, bang, bang.
Shooty.
So the second one was, and James, you could go first this time if you want.
Okay.
If we get a tie. So who was your favourite character in season 2?
Actually, speaking of the Pabu episode, it was Hunter. The shift. I've never really been interested in his character before until the Pabu episode, because there was a point where he was, I think, where Wrecker was starting to kind of get in with the community and Omega was making friends, and there was this look on Hunter's face of he's not comfortable there and something is wrong. And it was the first time I'd ever really appreciated his special skill being his enhanced senses. Because I just realized when he's on the battlefield, he's obviously so used to hearing threats and sensing threats around him. And his entire kind of worldview is based around protecting himself and his group. And now suddenly he's in this situation where he doesn't have to watch out for threats because everything is safe and fine. And that makes him so on edge that there's no danger that he can tell coming. I just thought that was so fascinating. The first time I saw Hunter's character and thought, I get you. I get what's going through your head right now.
Yeah.
I didn't really think of that as him using. That's quite interesting. I didn't really think of that him using his senses there. I thought more he was just an overthinker and a bit kind of on edge in general.
It's sort of the idea of hypervigilance. Anyone who's ever had any kind of anxiety problems before, you kind of know this feeling of it's way more comforting when you know that you're in danger, because you're I'm expecting danger and I can see where the threats are so I can plan for them. Whereas when you're in a completely normal environment, you're I feel so on edge because I know there's going to be danger, because I believe there's danger around every corner, but I can't see where it is. And that's more terrifying. And I kind of thought that seemed to be what Hunter was thinking of. I know that something's going to go wrong here. I know we're going to be in danger. I just can't see where it is. I can't see the Imperial dropship coming or the kind of big monster that's going to come out of the sea or something, but I know it's there somewhere. Yeah. And I just realized Hunter's never going to settle down. He's never going to be able to. Unless he sees a therapist. He could really do with a good therapist.
That'd be a good place to put in a plug to BetterHelp.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. And if you're a Hunter, you can get a discount on BetterHelp with the code Seismic Cinema.
It's a shame we don't actually have any sponsors yet, but maybe one day. So, Adam, what about yourself? Who's your favourite character in this season?
Well, I think I've already touched on Crosshair quite a lot this season, so I feel like I'm sort of going over lost ground by talking about him, really. So, I mean, for all the reasons that we've said, Crosshair is someone who, his instinct is to find the best way to survive and to win at all costs. And this season, he very much looked into the abyss, and he very much saw that all the things that he was led to believe were not going to be instrumental to his survival. And really deep at his core, he really did just want a found family. He really did want a brotherhood, which he grew up with. And I do wonder, I wonder whether the chip had something to do with it, and whether that's still somewhat controlling him or influencing some of his decision making at some point earlier in the season or later in season 1. But I just love all those little moments you get with Crosshair through the season where he just questions those little decisions. Wasn't there an episode, the one where he gets sent on a sort of assassination or exfil or like a retrieval mission where he goes to a planet to and then that one officer, that one Imperial stormtrooper just shoots the person rather than taking them in alive. And he remember him just having that little moment where he questions that decision, and that's weird. You almost think that Crosshair would be the person to pull the trigger, really. But no, he does question it. And getting all the way to the finale where suddenly we see a broken person, really, with not knowing where his future lies and not knowing where his purpose is and feeling lost. And I think he's probably the one person, other than possibly the argument could be made for Omega or maybe Tech, the one who's grown the most or learnt the most throughout the season. So we'll go with him.
Well, I'm going to match up with Adam this time. I'm going to go for Crosshair as well.
Yes.
I just feel like all the best episodes were the ones where he either had a starring role or a more minor role, like when he's imprisoned. But I just feel like he probably is the most interesting character in the whole show across the 2 seasons, and maybe the reason they've held him back a bit this season is because season 3 he's going to be in it a lot.
I hope so. I was really worried that he wasn't going to make it out of season 2 alive for some reason. Like when he got taken to that facility, I thought, is he going to die at the end of the season? But luckily, he's still alive.
Yeah. So
Could well die next season.
I've got a couple of honourable mentions. I really loved Cody's speech in the episode he was in, and it was really great to see him again.
It's always good to see Cody.
Was he just standing? Was he looking at like a war memorial or something like that? He gave a really good speech. And not a good character, but like a really evil character, the kind of doctor guy. I forget his name.
Oh yeah, what was his name?
In the last few episodes.
Oh, come on, where is it?
Oh, what is his name? Yeah.
Dr. Hemlock. With a really quiet voice. Like so kind of softly spoken.
No, well. So the last thing before we scoosh over to the Mandoverse is, have you got a favourite moment? So we'll start with Adam this time. Have you got a favourite like scene or favourite one-off moment that kind of comes to mind from season 2?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm just going to sift through the episode list for a little bit, so I might just hand this to James quickly. So James, do you want to take
cheating?
It cheating?
You haven't done your homework. Well, unfortunately, Adam, I'm going to be really quick with this because I've got.
Okay.
It's not like a whole scene; it's just one tiny moment in the very first episode, when they're on that beach planet, like running away. I think it's Hunter, Wrecker, and Echo or Tech. I can't remember which one it is. They're running away from the like giant crabs, and they call for Omega and Tech to come and pick them up. And Tech swings the ship round, and there's like Omega's hanging off the side on this big cable, shooting at the crabs. And Hunter just goes in his comlink and says, "Why is Omega hanging off the side of the ship?" And there's like something in the way he said it that I just thought, he's asked that question too many times, and he is sick of asking it. Like she is always hanging off the side of the ship, and I loved that. I don't know what it was. It was like a bit of that kind of passage of time of like they've gone on so many of these missions, and Omega's constantly getting into trouble, and Hunter's like, "Stop encouraging her."
It's a clever way to show that passing of time. Talk about passing of time, Adam. Have you got an answer now?
I tried to vamp the time as much as I could.
You tried to vamp very, very much so. I didn't expect you to be done that quickly. I suppose all of. We'll put it this way. I'll say the ones that weren't my favourites.
Now who's vamping for time?
Now I'm vamping for time. The one where they went to the planet with the dome, where they had to investigate the droid incursion or the droid malfunctions, which had the cameos of Jack Black in it. That one was certainly an interesting trip.
You're on the wrong show. We're still talking about Bad Batch.
Yeah. Oh yes, of course. Yes. I thought you moved on. Sorry.
I was filibustering so hard. You've gone for another TV show.
God damn it. So, fair enough. Favorite moment in the Bad Batch? Oh dear. Well, it's probably the bit where Tech falls at the penultimate episode. Probably. I mean, there was a lot of good stuff in that episode. There was, of course, there was Saw Gerrera that popped up in that one, wasn't there? Who was I did not expect to see whatsoever, and of course we got to see more of the Imperial officers in the tower. But well, of course, just all of the emotional growth that Tech does throughout that season obviously leads to that moment, and seeing I forget his name, the Wrecker, of course, who just looks at him as he falls. That's just was emotionally impactful. I remember I messaged James and I accidentally watched those 2 last episodes in the wrong order because for some reason I must have either, I don't know whether they both got released on the same day or whether I just
I think they did.
Did they? So I didn't expect there to be 2. So I just went to the latest episode and watched the final one and was like, oh, they must have just started off just hanging off the edge of this,
it's like a cold
tram line. And there was a whole other episode that I missed.
Did you go back and watch the other one?
Yeah, I did after I found out. Yeah,
it must have been a real anticlimax after.
It really was. I was like, I missed all of this. what's even happening?
Oh, that's hilarious.
No, my favorite moment. It wasn't my original favorite moment. I can't remember what that was. Anyway, I wrote the opening to the Zelo Beast episode when you realize what it is that's like causing all this carnage, because I absolutely loved the 2 episodes on the Zelo Beast from Clone Wars, like one where it gets loose in Coruscant and causes chaos. I always really enjoyed that episode, so I really liked seeing the Zelo Beast again. That was a bit that stood out to me.
Those were really good ones, and there was that element of horror at the beginning of the Zelo Beast episode, which felt very much out of like the film Alien, didn't it?
It did feel like when they're going through the ship, and you're like, I can see they've done something, but I can't see what it is yet.
Yeah,
it was a good one.
Well, doing an hour on 2 shows was very adventurous, so I think we should jump on to Mando and see where we go from there. So I'm going to share some of Paul's thoughts because they got a few giggles the last time. Paul seems to think he's funny. So Mando positives. Love seeing all of the different Mandalorian armors. There's an episode for you, dissecting all the different armors. Mandalorian's combat dropping. Wow, awesome.
That feeds into what you were saying about Paul loving the shooty.
Yes. Acting was great, especially Bo-Katan, I thought. Action set pieces were fantastically executed. More space battles this season. It really put the star in Star Wars. Paul didn't say that, but I said that. He spoke to you about this before. Blood Sapper Trapper was a great creature. Wish I had more background. I think Paul's putting a bit of pressure on you guys to do an episode on that thing.
Oh, no.
Oh, gosh.
Imperial remnants and seeing the Praetorian Guards.
Yep.
And negatives, Grogu felt sidelined / shoehorned in, and I think there was kind of writing reasons for that. IG-11 side story felt a bit underwhelming. I'm a bit mixed on that. We'll get to that. Wasn't a fan of the pirates' costume design, Jack Sparrow-esque.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And the cameos took me out of it a bit. Felt like I wasn't watching Star Wars, but didn't mind the acting itself. So I would agree with that. Although Jack Black does take me out it, I thought he actually did a decent job as the character of Captain Bombardier.
Yeah. I feel like he was the least Jack Black I've ever seen him in anything. Like you expect when you get Jack Black, he's just going to be doing like a kind of massive caricature of himself.
Yeah.
But then, he just seemed like he was Jack Black playing a character, which I thought was quite cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to fight Paul on any of those things. I think I agree with him on all of them.
Oh, well, Paul, I think so too. Paul will be glad to know that. I'm looking forward to Paul watching this when he gets a chance once it's out in the ether. So similar before. Just general discussion. You said at the start, James, that you weren't that crazy on either season. So I'd be interested to see your thoughts. I must admit, pretty mixed on this. There's, I think, maybe 3 or 4 I really liked and 4 that weren't as strong. But I'm one of those annoying people that even if I don't like, I'll like bits of every episode and every film. Like, you can't say you've watched a Star Wars film or show and hated every single bit of it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
It was something.
Like even the holiday bits I liked.
There's always something you can take from it.
I think this season was like a similar sort of feeling to the Bad Batch, where it just felt like there were a few bits where they didn't really know where they were going. And again, like whole episodes where I finished it and thought, what was the point of that? And Bad Batch, I think you said this maybe before we started recording, Colin. It's the Mandalorian story is better than the Bad Batch sometimes at like tying it all together at the end, so that when you get to the finale, you think, oh, okay, I see why they did that episode. But I think even this time, I was still a little bit like, I see why they did that episode, but also it didn't feel like the best way they could have done it. Like the IG-11 stuff, I don't know if this is what Paul meant with it being underwhelming, but I just thought by the end of it, it's like, so there was a whole episode about Din going to like pick up IG-11 to set up this subplot just so that IG-11 comes back to be the Marshal of Navarro. I thought, did it have to be IG-11? Like they could have introduced a new character rather than have like a whole side plot of trying to fix this droid. Yeah, I don't know. I did have mixed feelings, but there was a lot I loved in the season. I think it's the first time that I just like I spoke to some people who aren't mega Star Wars fans who watch the show anyway, and all of them kind of said the same thing of like, this feels kind of aimless. I don't really know where it's going. I thought it's interesting hearing that from people outside of like the Star Wars Twitter bubble for a while.
My dad watches all of the Mandalorian, and he's seen most of the films. He's not watched the animated shows, but he's watched all the kind of live action shows. So I like speaking to him and seeing his thoughts as well.
Yeah,
it's good getting that reaction outside of like mega Star Wars fans, isn't it?
So you and Paul weren't that keen on IG-11, but what did you make of IG-12?
I don't get the point of it. I don't know why Grogu needed a mech walker because like all he ever did was it.
Yeah.
Like, all he ever did when it, like on Mandalore, especially when he used it in the battle, was just like take a blaster off a stormtrooper or like separate those two Mandalorians fighting on the ship. And I'm like, Grogu can use the Force. He doesn't need this.
No, there was a lot of donning suits, and maybe that was his Mandalorian armor in a sense.
That's a good shout.
So that was his sort of
It would have made more sense if they hadn't destroyed it in the finale. Now he's back to just Grogu again.
Yeah, but then like he blew up. IG-11 blew up at the end of season 1, and then like what was left of him was a torso and a bit of his head. Oh god, it's the terrifying.
Oh wow,
again.
That's Grogu. Oh my goodness.
It's so cute and so scary. Like all that was left in was like a torso and a head, and they replaced the limbs and stuff and made IG-12. And then I don't know if anyone else noticed this. When he fought the Praetorian Guards of Mandalore, they sliced the suit up again.
Yeah.
And so it's like when he comes back at the finale, I was like, how much of that is IG-11? And how much of it is just other bits of other droid? Like, is it a kind of ship of Theseus?
It's the only Fools and Horses joke.
It's Trigger's broom.
It's Trigger's broom.
He's more machine now than man.
Yeah. I was surprised he didn't walk in though and say, I'm IG-13 now. I don't know if that's how droid numbering works though.
I didn't mind as much the IG-12 of it all. I thought it was quite cool, and it's going to sell a lot of action figures.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like IG-11's sacrifice in season 1 finale was like top 5 moments of Mandalorian for me, and
absolutely
high up in Star Wars in general.
Across
all of the media. Now that he's back, I don't think he needs it to be back, to be honest. I felt quite emotional when I saw the statue.
I thought that was really cool.
That was nice.
But nah, I don't know.
Yeah, I just think it would have been nice if it was like a new character that had been introduced, or if it's someone like Carson Teva, the X-Wing pilot, if he'd agreed to be the Marshal or some flesh out a character. Yeah, or Cobb Vanth.
Here's a head. So Grogu obviously was there during IG-11 sacrifice, so maybe it was in a sense motivated him to make his own jump to help and rescue Din during those final moments. Maybe that was his own version of that self-sacrifice.
Maybe.
It would have been cool. Sorry, Oliver.
It would have been cool if IG-11 or IG-12's weapon systems are still working, and you got to see like an assassin droid going up against the 3 Praetorian Guards.
Yeah. I kind of was a little bit disappointed when when he did say like, "Oh, all the weapon systems disabled." I went, "Oh, really?"
I was expecting there to be a wink, like all of them are disabled apart from the rocket launchers.
Although it was quite. What did you think about his little rampage through the market, squeezing all the lemons and the grapefruits or whatever it was? That was just felt a bit bonkers, but I kind of liked it in a joke, like a jokey, like I don't know, Wallace and Gromit sense.
Yeah, it felt a little bit like teenage Grogu. Like it reminded me of like teenage Groot a little bit, where he's kind of arguing back against Din more and trying to do more stuff by himself.
You sent me the picture of it being like the wrong trousers from Wallace and Gromit.
It did make me think of that.
The acid test for, I find, when you watch something of whether you care or not, is how you feel when they're in peril. Like, see, with Grogu and Din in the last 2 episodes, I had this overwhelming sense of anxiety of what was going to happen to them, because there was so much on the internet and other people's podcasts. Like, I thought Din was going to die, because there's been rumors of Pedro Pascal not being that happy at the moment with the show. Bo-Katan getting put into the kind of leading role. I really did fear for Din. Not so much Grogu, because he's the cash cow of the franchise. So it was like, did you guys think Din might have met his end in the end of season 3? Or
because I was when we were at Star Wars Celebration, I was surprised they didn't announce anything about season 4 of The Mandalorian. And then I watched the penultimate episode and thought, maybe they didn't say anything because Din Djarin dies at the end of the season. I was glad that he didn't, but I did genuinely worry they were going to kill him.
I did worry for a little bit. There were hints that Din was passing a lot of things over to Bo-Katan, and lots of responsibility and lots of things like the Darksaber, for example, which kind of felt that there was a passing of of responsibility, which meant he might eat it, but glad he didn't.
I was always a feeling of has his story kind of run its course? Has he done everything he can do? And then after that point, the next thing that I just think of is we'll kill him in a noble sacrifice or a tragic battle or something.
I did think earlier in the season, especially when he gets sort of ambushed in the cave by the weird spider droid thingy, that my goodness, he's lost his mojo a little bit, hasn't he? He just kept getting his ass handed to it at every single possibility. It's what's happened to season 1, Din?
It's that bit in the Book of Boba Fett when he returns and he's fighting the people in the butcher's, the kind of abattoir scene with the Darksaber. And it's he's still doing it, but he's not quite on his game anymore, I suppose, because he spent so much time being a dad.
What did you think of that little spider alien droid thingy?
I thought it was Grievous reincarnated.
Yeah. I'm still interested to know what that thing is, because
I don't think eye, an organic eye in there or something.
I don't even think there's a Wikipedia article on it.
I heard a rumor you guys are doing an episode on it.
To be confirmed.
What if the crab droid became the next ruler of Mandalore?
It was horrible though to see all those things he was injecting into Din. It felt very dark, that episode, in that way.
I'm trying to find it on Wikipedia now, and I'm not finding anything.
Yeah, we'll have to do an episode on it at some point.
What are your thoughts on the whole Darksaber, the passing to Bo-Katan, and then the ultimate destruction? I've seen a lot of people liken it to the Elder One situation in the Harry Potter franchise.
Yes.
I was surprised they destroyed it. I really wasn't expecting them to break the Darksaber.
No,
it's a bit like when they destroyed the Razor Crest, which I still haven't forgiven them for.
I guess as well,
they?
I guess it's similar as well to when Luke loses his father's lightsaber at The Empire Strikes Back. At that point, the lightsaber was lost forever.
Yeah,
it's quite a shocking thing to see this really important weapon destroyed. I just wasn't expecting them to, especially if Dave Filoni is involved with the show. I don't know whether he created the Darksaber, but he's got a lot of ownership over it through Clone Wars and Rebels. I was really surprised. That must take a lot of humility to be yep, I'll break it.
Sorry, yeah, go on.
No, I was just saying, I heard someone say that the droid at the end of the Ahsoka trailer, the one from Clone Wars, might be able to fix it.
Dr. David Tennant's character.
Yeah.
Dr. David Tennant.
I was going to say, I was Doctor what? Doctor who? It was, it's good that they've done it in a sense that now no one is going to have the ability to wield it and maybe take over Mandalore who is unworthy, or it's nice to see that the different factions of Mandalore won't be fighting over it or won't be disputing who's the leader anymore. That has come to an end finally. It was a fitting way to usher in the new age of Mandalore. But it was sad to see it go. But
it kind of felt like the way that Bo-Katan led everybody to take back Mandalore, though. I imagine for the people who are in that battle with her, the Darksaber doesn't really matter anymore. I don't think anyone's going to watch what Bo-Katan did and say, yeah, but you lost the Darksaber, so I'm not following you anymore. You led us all in here, you took back this planet. Don't really care if you have the magic sword.
No, true.
There was a lot of signs, Mando or Din never really been able to use it properly. It was always a sign that he wasn't going to be the one to use it. Because I saw some people say, why can Bo-Katan use it? He can't. Well, she's used it for years, previously.
Yeah.
I always forget she had it for a while.
And there's that. There's always been that kind of discussion. It's a bit like the Iron Man quote of if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't wear it. That kind of idea.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Maybe that's where they're going with it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's there's a quote, isn't there? Somebody says, is it Gideon who says, "What are Mandalorians without their little trinkets and things like that?" Well, they are more than capable of leading without their trinkets.
I had to hold myself together because I was in work, but there was just seeing the finale. I don't know your thoughts on the finale in general, but I just found it so emotional when like Grogu was fighting alongside Din, and
yes,
you're just so on edge, and then Bo-Katan joins them, and she's like, "We're all going to do this together," and then they recreate the kind of fire, the Grogu fire still from season 1.
I think there's so many great moments from that episode, like going from like even Din's takedown, takedown of all the Imperial troopers during that hallway scene where Chopper has to come in and take down each ray shield at one point at a time. That was amazing.
Did you say Chopper?
Sorry. Yeah.
Do you mean Skippy?
You mean Skippy? Skippy. R5. Is it R5?
Yeah, Skippy.
R5. The best little scare droid. Yeah, most scare droid in the universe. Just seeing him take down all of those Imperial stormtroopers was just absolutely incredible. But then also seeing the Praetorian Guards once again taking on Din, but then seeing Grogu take them on alongside him sort of gives you another perspective and different appreciation, or different, like having seen them from The Last Jedi, you sort of I don't know, it's just nice to see them in a different environment. Sorry, I think I'm going to ramble on a little bit. James, go on, save me here.
Yeah, that scene, or the sequence where he's taking down the stormtroopers in the hallway. Like, what is it with hallways and being really cool scenes in Star Wars?
I know.
That was just so... The way he was like... He starts off with nothing, and then picks up like a shield or something, and then he takes like the vibro knife, and then the baton, and then like just works his way through there, getting stronger each time.
It had a real video game moment, didn't it? Or sort of like when you learn the different things on the skill tree throughout the game, and suddenly you get each opportunity to use them all.
Yeah, it felt like that, but like not in a way that like you're watching someone play a video game. It felt like you were doing it. It was so cool, and the moment towards the end of the like big Mandalore battle when the base was exploding, and Din and Bo both just jumped in front of Grogu to protect him from the fire. I thought that was just like one of my favorite moments from the show generally, was just because like you can tell in their brains there are no thoughts. It's just Grogu. Like that's all they think about. As if they could actually like stop him from burning to a crisp just by jumping in front of him, but they tried it anyway.
Yeah.
The main criticism, and I do share this one from the finale and maybe the season as a whole, is the shortened finale time-wise.
It
would have benefited from, like, you don't see Din and Bo have a conversation at the end of the episode. There's not.
That's true.
Usually there's like an extra 10 minutes where there's a lot of kind of deep chat, and I feel like this episode maybe suffered a bit from some of the expectations. Like people were expecting Bo-Katan to fly on in the Mythosaur, the Armorer to be a traitor, and all these different things that didn't happen in the end.
Yeah, I did think it's a bit weird the Mythosaur didn't do anything. But then maybe, I don't know, maybe it's more fitting that there wasn't like a giant monster that came in and saved them, that it was actually just the Mandalorians themselves.
I found it strange that what was the episode where that big monster comes out the ground and the Mandalorians then have to go underground to escape from it? Wasn't that the penultimate episode?
Yeah, the spies.
Well, it doesn't really, that didn't come up again, that creature. It just sort of comes up and scares them away and then doesn't reappear. I found that a little bit strange. That
I will admit, I still don't know what creature that was, because I was doing something at the time. I was like looking away from the screen, and then I heard a big bang and looked up, and I saw that something had happened, but I didn't see what, and then I just never, like, it doesn't show up again. So I thought I won't rewind it because I'm sure it's going to be important. And just never see it again. So I never knew what it was.
Feels a bit too much of that at times, because you've got the big creature in the first episode. The weird chicken dinosaur things with their wee creepy babies eggs.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was something I remembered. So that whole sequence on the beach, remember when they're all training
Yes.
when they're all doing their sort of martial art combat training and everyone's practicing, and that just felt a little. I remember feeling that felt a little bit forced, or that felt a little bit unnatural at times, because I remember that was when Bo-Katan had finally come into the fray of the Mandalorian sect, and I remember talking to James and just us two being like, it just feels like they're trying to show off how hard they are for no reason.
Yeah, and it's like we've got a new guest. Everyone show off your judo.
Grogu whips out the paintballs,
and he wins that game by cheating.
Yeah.
Because what happens? They said that you can only shoot once, or no, you shoot once and you get a point if you hit. And Grogu just shoots 3 times and gets 3 points in 1 round and wins. They just let him win.
Yeah. I'm gonna take Paul to the door of the car park, because I kind of disagree that Grogu had no character development. I feel like he developed and showed off a lot of the skills he'd learned from Luke. I feel like he intervened in like the fight between what's his name, Paz Vizsla, and the other guy on the kind of pirate ship.
Yeah,
I feel like he actually took part in actual fights this time round and used his ability to jump and see Grogu pushing people out of the way with the Force during the battle. That was spoiler. That was my favorite moment of the season. Seeing him actually using his Force skills in like an actual battle.
Yeah. There was a point when Grogu rescued Din from the stormtroopers in the finale, and Din like looked at Grogu and then said, I'm gonna need you to be brave or something. And that, like, for some reason that just really hit me quite hard, because it was a moment where you see Din realize like Grogu's not a child anymore that I have to look after. Like, he can actually look after me as well, and he can fight alongside me. That was I really liked that, the way that ended with Grogu.
And then when he said, "You did good, kid," I'm like,
that felt very Han Solo.
I think Pedro Pascal is worth keeping in the franchise, because apparently he doesn't do a lot of the stunt work. Like, he's just the voice a lot of the time. But I feel like he's worth keeping on board for those moments. Like,
for sure,
it wouldn't be the same with anyone else.
Yeah,
for sure. I remembered seeing at the end of, I think, the final episode, a glimpse of the Under Armour that Grogu has. I think somebody make him like a piece of chainmail or something out of Beskar.
The armor makes him like a breastplate at some point in the season.
I kind of wish that featured a little bit more.
Yeah, I forgot he had that until you just said it.
That because I only just caught a little glimpse of it in one episode, and I thought that felt like a big part of Grogu's development as to becoming a Mandalorian. The fact that he has this thing that's made from Beskar. So it almost felt like when I did see that again, I wanted there to be another scene where suddenly Grogu maybe got hit by something and then obviously was saved by that Beskar armor, which proves that, it helped, and he's
Another reason to disagree with Paul is we get I don't think it's the end of it, but we get the next installment in his flashbacks where we find out he was rescued by Darth Jar Jar.
Oh gosh, yes.
I forgot all about that episode.
Yeah, I forgot that happened. Good old Ahmed Best.
I want to know if anyone had actually like theorized that Ahmed Best would be the Jedi who rescued him, because I've seen so many theories. I've had so many theories.
There was, James. There was one person on Twitter who predicted it. I think it was like halfway through season 1 or something, and he quote retweets it and then says like, "Told you so." It's mental.
How can that be true? How can anyone have thought?
Did Ahmed Best played this Kelleran guy on like a game show or something?
Yeah, like Jedi Temple Challenge, I think it is.
Yeah,
I found it quite interesting because I heard before I watched the episode there was a big cameo, so I'm like watching the episode like, oh, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Like, I know who Ahmed Best is, but it didn't click right away until the credits, where it was like, oh, it's Ahmed Best, and I was like, so I've only seen him in like behind the scenes Phantom Menace once when he's got Jar Jar on top of his head. I don't know if you've ever seen the clips. And I was like, who is this big cameo? And it wasn't until the credits came down that it clicked. But I think there's going to be another installment in it, because it didn't seem to escape the planet yet, because he was in some kind of Naboo cruiser.
Yes.
Yeah. It showed him being taken by the ship, which was obviously owned by the Naboo Royal Guard, and him being taken by Armor Best off. So we don't know where they went. Did they go to Naboo, or did he take them? Did he take Grogu to someone else, for example? We haven't quite learned that. So I suppose, maybe we'll get more answers in the next season. But it's almost weird. Like, do we need to know those answers now? It almost feels like a lot of Grogu's story has been mostly resolved and mostly figured out. The only thing is, obviously, we don't know who his parents are, I suppose. But then Din is now his dad. So yes.
Yeah, I've always felt this a little bit of like when we didn't know who got him out of the temple in the first place. I was always a little bit like, it'd be cool to know, but I don't know if I need to. But yeah, now they made a point of putting him on a ship from Naboo, with the Naboo Royal Guard, I'm like, well, now I need to know what happens to him next, because it's not just a random starship; it's Naboo. Like you said, are they going to Naboo? Are they going to hide out with the Gungans? Is he going to be Jar Jar's best friend for a while?
See, there is something would be very ironic that they would hide him on the planet where the Emperor's homeworld, effectively.
Yeah, because there was a storyline from Legends. I think it was in the original Battlefront 2 game, in the campaign, where you go to Naboo like just after the formation of the Empire, and you have to assassinate the Queen of Naboo because she's been hiding Jedi that were rescued from the temple. So I'm a little bit like, oh, are we going to go to Naboo and maybe see like the Queen of Naboo, or whoever the current Queen of Naboo is, hiding out Jedi like Grogu? Because that'd be quite cool if they kind of weave that like old storyline back into canon.
Well, we know what happens to Jar Jar from Canon Revere. He becomes like a clown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor guy living on the streets.
There's so much great ammunition for you guys for season 5.
Literally. so
Jar Jar
much.
The clown.
What did there was I think there was one also little thing about Grogu that grated me a little bit, was just his over excessive use of flipping. He jumps a lot, and I understand that young people love that, and I understand that's part of the magic of Star Wars. But yeah, I guess just from my own personal perspective, it seemed a little bit excessive.
He kind of has to jump because it's his only.
Yeah.
It was just the way he like jumps into someone's arms or something, and it just looked really cartoonish. Because in the finale, when he was doing it to get away from the Praetorian Guards, I thought that looked fine. I thought that was really cool. But it was just the way he like leaps into Pelibotto's arm and does this triple backflip. I was like, it does look like you're flinging a puppet around.
Everybody wants to hold the baby.
Everyone wants to hold the baby.
Holds the baby.
Right, I think that's a good time to get into our last wee bit. So, moment, character, episode. Who's going to go first? James?
James.
Probably James first. Seems like a safer bet.
Yeah, definitely for me. Yeah.
So, you choose. It can be moment, character, or episode. What do you want to go first?
I will go... Actually, I might do 2 birds with 1 stone, because my favorite character was Bo-Katan. And I've never really been a fan of Bo-Katan's character. She's always been one of the few Star Wars characters that I've actually not really liked. But then this episode, it was the moment in the Minds of Mandalore episode where she picks up the Darksaber and uses it to rescue Din. And it was just one of the coolest like action sequences I've ever seen in Star Wars. Like just the like her kind of fluidity, her like how comfortable she was with the Darksaber. She just looked so cool doing it. She was such a badass. And I thought, I like this character now. Like, I really like the character of Bo-Katan. So, yeah, favorite character at moment in 1.
I'm going to do the same as you, actually, because my favorite moment already spoiled. So, I'm going to go favorite character, Paz Vizsla. And the best moment, his sacrifice and defeat by the Praetorian Guards, because I thought that bit was just really chilling, just the way he was so kind of beaten down already. And then, when you're playing a video game and you've used up all your health apart from the time you've got all these new villains coming around. And he had a great story arc throughout the season, just with his son and his protection of him. Although, what I didn't understand was his son's a foundling. But if it's his son, would it be a foundling? Or is it like an adopted son, like a Grogu?
Oh, that's what I wondered, yeah.
I suppose, yeah. He's still. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not too sure.
Maybe I think it's maybe like an adopted situation.
Yeah.
Like Grogu calls Grogu his son, and his speech about there's quite a few rousing good speeches, but his one where he's like, "Why should we continually sacrifice ourselves?" Then he just goes, "Because we're Mandalorians," and then they do the Game of Thrones like King of the North.
Yeah,
but
there's a good twist in that where he was like, "Why should we keep sacrificing ourselves for you?" And Din was looking at him like, "Oh no, this has gone bad," and it's like, because we're Mandalorians, like, "Oh, you had me in the first half."
I quite a few. Like, there's the fight. What's the other guy's name? The guy that kind of takes the ship down and jumps out it. What's
Axe Woves.
Yeah,
their kind of fight, and then they brought in the Grogu bit with the no. Like, I found the yes, no a wee bit too far at times. But in that moment when it stops the fight, at least it had a purpose. So I thought he was like, when you actually listen to what I've said there, like, he has so many big moments throughout the season.
Yeah.
It's kind of underappreciated, I think, in that, like, you think a lot about, Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon and all these kind of big characters, and Paz gets a little bit lost in that. But then he did have a really good arc, like you said.
See, before they name him, see if you go back to season 1, when he's speaking, it just says like heavy infantry.
Big boy.
Because even back on one of my favorite Mandalorian episodes, The Sin, season 1, episode 3, he's one of the main ones because he's the one that Mando's saluting, isn't it, when he's flying away at the end of that episode?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's in the Book of Boba Fett as well.
Yes, he is.
In that big scene. So yeah, I did the same as you. So that was my favorite character and moment from the season.
I want to also say Bo-Katan, but I suppose that's I think we spend a lot of time with her, and she does go from, like, she goes from this reluctant and disenfranchised ex-leader to finally realizing her true potential, and also finally finding the strength to be able to trust in others again, and to see past people's differences and to unite everyone under that same banner. I think she goes through a really interesting transformation across the season. So it's probably, and like you've all said, she has some badass moments of herself, trying to take on, when she flies in and she starts taking on Gideon herself.
That moment when she's flying and she gets the Darksaber out to lead them. I melted a little bit.
It's just amazing. But yeah, that bit where she just flies in, and does she? I don't know if she kicks Gideon or she just sort of
full body tackles him in the air.
Tackles into the ground. That was absolutely incredible. And also, seeing her then take on people like, I think, doesn't she fly after the Imperial fighters and take them on just before they bomb her castle? And there's like so many individual moments that she has, which are just fantastic. So her, it's probably my answer for favorite character, although the General Grievous crab-eyed alien thing is an honorable mention. I'd like to know more. And I suppose favorite moments, I've had quite a few. I am going to say there's probably lots of moments from that final episode or the penultimate episode. But I just want to make a special mention of when they bring up the Shadow Council and when we get to see all of the different Imperial remnants that come up. That was a really enlightening moment where finally we got to see how, the structure of the Empire post Return of the Jedi finally, is as it appears, and we got to see like the hint of Thrawn coming back, and we also got to see Hux, Brendel Hux appear, which if anyone's read, I think it's any of the Star Wars books, he's a prominent character in those, and goes off and starts.
There's a lot of this in the Aftermath trilogy, which I've read.
Yeah. So that will, let's go with that.
Fun. You might already know this, but it's worth pointing out just in case that Hux's dad. Do you know who he was played by?
Oh, it's yes, it's Gleason's brother, isn't it?
Yeah. Brother, Ryan Gleason. Is
that right?
I think so. Yeah, Ryan Gleason.
Family.
Yeah.
Annoyingly
really cool.
talented family.
Yeah.
Yes. So sorry, you go.
I did think how that affects the sort of the structure of how the Imperial Remnant is, or the First Order is, or how they relate to each other, because Brendel Hux does, in the books, go off with Grand Admiral Sloane into the unknown regions to start the First Order, and it's very much sort of insinuated that that sect goes off independently from the rest of the Empire, which is sort of destroyed during the Battle of Jakku. And this suggests that Brendel Hux is still in contact with the other Imperial remnants outside the unknown regions. So I really want to know what's going on there. I want to know, is he still making the First Order, but is in contact with the Imperial remnants? Is, what's that whole thing? What is it?
I'm wondering if it means we're going to see Ray Sloane in like the Remnant film that Dave Filoni is doing, or something like that.
Yes, please.
A lot of people thought there would maybe be a wee bit of Ahsoka set up in this season, but do you think maybe the Shadow Council scene was the setup, and they'll dig in more into that in Ahsoka?
Probably, yeah. I thought we were going to get a tiny bit of Thrawn. Like, I didn't think he was going to have a big role in the finale or something, but I thought you might get someone like reporting on a hologram, and then the camera pans and it's like Thrawn or something. But yeah, because we had Captain Peleon, who's like Thrawn's second in command, was part of the Shadow Council, and he was the one talking about like Thrawn being displeased or something. So yeah, I feel like the Shadow Council probably was that setup.
I don't think we should complain though, because in this era of like post-credit scenes, and sometimes when they don't do the big plug, it's actually quite refreshing that they're just letting the episode be the episode.
Yeah, it's nice when it's not just a trailer for the next thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got one last remaining lingering question. And I said at the start, there's 4 episodes I really like in this season, and there's 4 that I don't like as much, with varying degrees. So do you have a favourite episode from season 3?
I'm trying to work out from the episode list which ones are your favourites and which ones aren't.
So I'll tell you very quickly then. So my least favourite was the one with Pershing.
Yes.
Oh, I completely forgot about that one. Yeah.
Didn't hate it. Next least favourite would probably be the one with Jack Black. Although I didn't hate it. Maybe my hot take, I quite enjoyed the kind of wackiness of the malfunctioning droids.
Yeah.
And then I would say the next one is... Hold on, let me get the episode list up. My next favourite would be probably The Foundling. I found that episode a bit weird with the dragon babies. And then the first episode would probably be Nyx, which I thought was decent, but a bit underwhelming. Yeah. And then I would say my 4th least favourite is The Mines of Mandalore, which was the best of the first 4, I would say.
Yeah.
And then my next favourite is probably The Pirate, which was the first kind of big action episode with the all attack on Navarro. Yeah. And then I would say the finale is my second favourite, and my favourite was the penultimate one, where Paz goes out at the end. So that was kind of how I ranked them.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the Dr. Pershing episode, because I completely forgot about that. But I oddly quite enjoyed it. I remember. So I might meet you in the car park for this one. But
no, I didn't. I didn't put it last because I hate it. I just put it last because it was my least favorite.
Yeah,
I did quite enjoy it still.
I think I just liked seeing the New Republic and how they operate for the first time. It's not something we've seen too much of. I mean, I think I heard you talking about Resistance animated show, which does talk a little bit about the New Republic and stuff like that. But and of course, if you read the books, you might know. But yeah, just seeing that and seeing sort of how they're portrayed in it, because there's the bit where Pershing gets captured at the end and he's put up to the sort of the mind flayer, but not in a sense, and they're sort of portrayed as a flawed society in a sense that could easily go bad in many ways. It was did you notice when Pershing and the female character were walking through Coruscant when they have those like glowy lollies or whatever they are, and they go up to like the water fountain. I think it's the Resistance theme is playing in the background.
Yeah, March of the Resistance or something.
That's right, March of Resistance is playing. That was a nice callback.
That fountain comes up in the Rise of, is it the first High Republic book, The Light of the Jedi?
Yeah,
the mountain they look at is there's quite a. I don't think it's mentioned first in Night of the Jedi. I think it's mentioned somewhere else, but like it features in a chapter, and that's where I remember it from. I think there was a tiny bit of music from the Lego Skywalker Saga game as well, like the music that plays when you run around Coruscant.
Yeah.
But I can't quite remember. Maybe it is just March of the Resistance I'm thinking of.
Yeah. But then also we got to see the opera where Palpatine obviously talks to Anakin Skywalker and tells him the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, famously. You get to see that again.
I think the issue with this episode is people like us who read some of the books, watch all the shows. I think this is one that maybe the kind of casual Mando viewer would struggle with a bit.
Yeah, I get that.
Like some of the friends I've spoken to who don't like, they watched this episode and they said, I didn't know who this guy was or why we spent like 40 minutes watching an episode. And he's not even like a deep cut lore wise, like he was in the Mandalorian before, but yeah, like for a lot of people it just went over their heads of why that was important. I guess by the end of the season it's still not really, like they still didn't really come back to that much, other than just hinting that cloning is going to be an important thing at some point.
Well, they did talk. Gideon did clone himself and try and make him Force sensitive, but it did kind of fly by that bit.
Yeah. Do you think there's going to be more Gideon clones out there that we're going to see? Because I feel like those aren't going to be his only clones.
I've heard rumors that it was a clone that was killed.
That's what I wondered as well. You don't say that you've got like a dozen clones of yourself and then your character dies and that's the last we ever see of you.
The way he spoke about the Force didn't really sound like normal Gideon either. It did sound a bit like someone.
And he's I don't know. Yeah, and he sort of gave himself up to the fire quite gladly in a way, almost like he was expecting it, putting his arms up, and I don't know.
I don't think we've seen the last of Gideon.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is an issue with Star Wars, as they keep bringing characters back constantly. Did you have a favorite then? Like the second last was my favorite. Did you have a standout episode?
That was my favorite one as well. The Spies. Partly for the Paz Vizsla scene, and also like Adam said, the Shadow Council. I just really enjoyed seeing the characters like Brendel Hux and Captain Peleon, and just seeing like this kind of paranoid side of the Empire where they're like, no one wants to reveal themselves. Like Thrawn doesn't want to reveal themselves. Rey Sloane might be off screen somewhere not wanting to reveal herself. They're all just like trying to play their power without showing their hand. I just thought that was really cool, and I feel like it's gonna be cool when we see that like play out in other stuff later on.
I think mine's going to be the Spies as well, just for the reasons we've all said. So I think that's a clean slate on the Spies. And there was just so many great action moments. There was and Paz Vizsla's moment as well. Such an incredible ending to that episode, seeing the Praetorian Guards come out. I guess to just throw another one out there for one of my top ones, I guess I will also have to say the Mind of Mandalore is one of my favorites. I loved just the exploration of the mines and seeing Din get captured by the creature and then having Grogu go up to rescue him and all of that. I thought that was some brilliant moments. I remember enjoying that quite a lot. But yeah, let's go with the Spies.
Who were the Spies?
That's a good point. Who were?
I need to rewatch that because I'm like, maybe there were actually more than one spy and I just missed it.
That's for the whole armorer debate, or whether she was actually a spy. I'm glad they didn't go down that route.
I still think there's something sus about her, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that like she's very kind of withdrawn and reserved, but I feel like there's something more to that character that we don't know.
It's weird that Bo-Katan's the de facto leader, but she lead all the initiation.
Yeah, she kind of like, I know she's called the armor, but she's almost like a priest in that sense, isn't she? Which I guess if your religion is weapons and armor, then an armor would be your kind of priest, wouldn't it?
I love when she just starts clobbering people with her
She just takes people out like mid-flight with her with her battle stuff, her hammers.
Okay. Yeah. So see when she flies in and she's got like a hammer, but also tongs. Like she doesn't have two hammers. One thing she's holding is a set of tongs.
Hammer and tongs.
People. Yeah. Like bringing tongs to a blaster fight, and it somehow works.
Right, we've got one last question before we finish up. Did you enjoy BB Season 2 more or Mando Season 3 more? Will we do it all together?
That's a
oh no.
I don't know.
I'm happy to go first.
Okay.
It wasn't always plain sailing, but I do think Mando pulled off the season better. I feel like Mando had, Bad Batch had like 6 really good episodes, which weren't necessarily all linked together that much.
Yeah.
I feel like the Bad Batch filler episodes were pretty dull. There was maybe 2 or 3 that I just struggled to get through a wee bit. I didn't feel that way with The Mandalorian, and I feel like The Mandalorian's finale was stronger than Bad Batch's. But I feel like there was a spell in the middle where I was enjoying Bad Batch more. But I would just give the edge to Mandalorian overall, even though it wasn't. I still think Season 1's the best Mandalorian season. I feel like Season 2 was too. Here's Boba Fett, here's Ahsoka. Whereas Season 1 stood on its own as this great story with new characters.
Yeah.
So I would go Mando Season 3 over Bad Batch Season 2 on the whole. But it wasn't always plain sailing.
I'm going to go Bad Batch.
Interesting.
There was a lot that I didn't love about both shows. The stuff we talked about, like the filler episodes and like it seeming a bit aimless a lot of the time. But I feel like Bad Batch has more license to be that because The Mandalorian was like tied into this wider story. And I think I was just a bit too annoyed that The Mandalorian had episodes that didn't like advance that or didn't build on those ideas that well. So even though the Bad Batch had filler episodes, I still enjoy the filler episodes of the Bad Batch.
However, just to throw out there, Season 1, Episode 6 with the prisoner, it seemed throwaway until Mayfeld came back in Season 2. So Mando's is quite good at picking the characters back up again.
Yeah,
in the next season. So maybe Season 4 might make you see Season 3 slightly differently. I'm not saying it's
true.
That's got a lot of issues.
That's very true. Oh, so
you, Adam, for the final thoughts.
Is this the deciding votes? So we've had one for the Mando, one for the Bad Batch. Who's going to have it?
You get to decide which one gets renewed for another season.
You seem very fond of the Mando finale.
I did. I am. There's a lot about the Mandalorian, this Mandalorian season I liked, but there was a lot of it that I was struggling with, and there was a lot of it where I was just waiting for other things to happen and for other things to move on. Like, I think you mentioned the Covert episode I sort of had problems with, and just generally wanted it to move forward at maybe a better pace than was happening. I felt more for the characters such as Crosshair and Hunter for the reasons James said.
I see what he's going
in the Bad Batch than I did Bo-Katan. Like I did, so I think I felt more. It resonated with me more by the finale of the Bad Batch than it did the Mandalorian. So I'm going to go with the Bad Batch.
Din's Grogu's daddy now, though.
I mean, it was. Yes, I agree. There was good bits of that, but I think all of Crosshair's arcs and Hunter's arc sealed it for me. I think so. Let's go with that.
I feel vindicated.
I know when to accept defeat.
It's because he has to host a podcast with me, so we have to agree on something at the
end. I'll tell you my real thought after the
podcast. I'm getting ganged up upon by the Monster Farm report.
Paul's fault for not being here.
They'd be better calling you the Moisture Farm Gang or something like that. No, but that is, and Paul's punishment for not being here is he's got an hour 45 minutes to edit. So
sorry, Paul.
Sorry.
Well, guys, it's been a blast. I've really enjoyed talking Bad Batch and Mandalorian with you.
Yeah, likewise.
It's been great.
Hopefully you have too. I always feel like our collaborative episodes are usually quite long, so we must know quite a lot of stuff.
It's because we don't know how to shut up.
No.
Well, you guys definitely know more than we do anyway. So just before we finish off, talked a wee bit at the start. He's wanting to just plug what's just came for season 4 for you guys and future plans.
What are our future plans?
Yeah, what are our future plans? So
we've just wrapped up season 4. So if you've not listened to any of our stuff before, you've got 4 whole seasons to go and listen to, which I know probably will take you up until whenever we start doing season 5. But we've not even done any planning for that yet, so we have no idea when that's going to start launching. But we might do some bonus episodes in between. We could do our own Mandalorian review.
We will do our own Mandalorian review, of course. Are we going to do a Bad Batch review? Should we maybe
do something on Visions? We could do so many episodes.
We could do so much.
You're only allowed to do it. You're only allowed to do those two if you plug this while you're doing it.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Our entire Mandalorian review could just be like, welcome to the Moisture Farm Report. This is our Mandalorian review.
Yeah.
Go and listen to the episode we did this Isaac Cinema because all of our thoughts are there.
Yeah. But I mean, season 5 will 100% have loads more what ifs. We love doing our little what if creations. You know, me and James take some story in the Star Wars universe and make our own spin of the events of what happens afterwards, and create bunker stories as a result. And we do deep dives into characters and planets and all sorts of things in the Star Wars universe. So yeah, I don't know, we've got a whole episode list of things we still have yet to look into. I'm trying to go through them in my head of the things we haven't touched on yet, but I'm sure there's loads. So yeah.
I've given you quite a few ideas as well. You've got
maybe this is us planning season 5.
Paul loves Jar Jar Binks.
Didn't we do or didn't you say last time that you wanted us to do benthic, and then we ended up doing benthic 2 tubes?
Yes.
I claim my writing credit on that.
Executive producer.
Well, you guys say you don't plan much. Me and Paul really don't plan, but we're going to do, as we said, either a Visions review or a Visions episode ranking. Maybe the latter. Maybe me and Paul just do that, rank the episodes. I'm going to rewatch them over the next couple of days.
Nice.
And then we've got a couple of films lined up. I want Paul to watch Dead Poets Society, which I watched recently. I want him to check that out, and Paul wants me to watch The Thing.
Nice.
Good film.
Yeah.
So that's our plans for the next couple of weeks. We just kind of get to 30. Our first season was 30 episodes, so we just decided after every 30th episode, we'll say it's a new season. So we're on season 3 right now.
Nice.
Probably nearing the end. But if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you first of all follow Moisture Farm Report on. Do you just remind everyone what platforms they can find you on?
Yeah. Go for it, James.
We're on Twitter and Instagram at Moisture Farm Rep. We've also got an email address if you want to send us ideas for Star Wars stories to cover. moisturefarmpod@gmail.com. And if you listen to our show and you enjoy it, you can support it by buying us a cup of Java juice at buymeacoffee.com/Moisture Farm Rep.
Oh, we have one of those as well.
Yes, we would love some cup of Java juices. That would be very nice. But of course, if you want to listen to us, we're on most.
I forgot to say where you can listen to us.
I was going to say, yeah, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts: Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. Some smaller ones even. We're probably on there. What? Yeah,
Overcast,
I can't even think of what they are.
Podbean, Castbox. I don't know if anyone uses them. They're there.
We're there.
This is going to be my best ever plug, but what they said, we're on places as well. So
I think we're everywhere but Audible, because I've just never had the attention span to set that up. But you are on Audible.
I didn't even know we could be on Audible. Is that
we're on Audible.
They keep sending me emails saying add your podcast. I'm like, I'll do it later.
No.
We're on Audible, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, which is what Anchor was. Spotify, Good Pod, YouTube, all these places, fun places.
Yeah.
I've managed to survive an episode without Paul, so hopefully I've done some justice. No, thanks a lot. And the last thing you need to do when you come on our podcast is see if you can remember our slogan from the last time you came on the podcast.
No. No.
That was November.
Oh,
there's been a lot of time since November.
I don't know. I have no idea.
The power of
escapism.
It's that, but it's also the power of coming up with good ideas and maybe not going into them as much detail as you can, and maybe not quite reaching your potential. But also, well done, the power of escapism.
Nice.
Paul always says something witty where he makes up one related to what we're talking about. So I try and be able to do the same.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, guys, thank you very much. And whoever made it to the end of this marathon episode definitely deserves a medal at the event where Chewbacca didn't get a medal. Or did he? Right, guys, thanks so much for coming on. And
thank you very much for having us.